You're still live on JoyNews desk, and the nation's quest to defeat the deadly coronavirus pandemic by inoculating about 20 million people is under threat as fake news and misinformation about the COVID-19 vaccines persist. The arrival of the vaccines in Ghana last month signaled the beginning of a possible return to normal. But with social media getting flooded with conspiracy theories about the jabs, the chances of achieving the ambitious target of building herd immunity by the end of the year is fizzling out. But do the COVID-19 vaccines really alter your DNA? Do they cause physical harm to your body? Are they signs of the Antichrist? In our latest Hotline documentary, Conspiracies, Jabs and Myths, my colleague Manuel Kranting finds answers to these questions and more. Here are excerpts.
As we've heard in the news, some other countries that started administering this vaccine to their citizens have started complaining about people having blood clots and all that. And you would want to ask, then what is the effect? What are some of the adverse effects it's having on our citizens? Is that it's having some effect and we are not realizing? What if it comes with your inability to give birth? How would you be able to determine now?
The blood clot issue that currently 12 European countries have suspended, in my opinion, all those countries are completely overreacting and are putting themselves in danger. They are halting their own vaccination campaigns. German government recently came under significant criticism for halting the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine. The WHO today released a statement saying they find no evidence of a link between the vaccine and clotting. The European Medical Regulatory Agency, the same thing. No regulatory agency who has looked at this so far has found any link. So far in the UK, I think it's currently over 10 million doses of AstraZeneca, probably even more, have been administered. They've recorded maybe 20 people with blood clots. The frequency of blood clots among vaccinated people is even lower than in the general population under normal circumstances. It's the analogous to getting a vaccine, walking out and being hit by a car and saying that the vaccine caused my car accident. There are two separate events that have happened to you that are not causal, but because one happened before the other, you are assuming that that's what happened.
Since the outbreak of the pandemic, the most sophisticated research conducted by local scientists is the genome sequencing of the virus. This was conducted by a team from the West Africa Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens at the University of Ghana, just to know more about the virus.
In general, majority of the research in Ghana is supported by overseas aid. WACBIP was established through a World Bank grant. Our research is supported by funders including the Wellcome Trust, the Gates Foundation, the NIH. Noguchi is largely funded by the Japanese government. KCCR is supported by the German government. The research capacity in this country is largely dependent on grants that are from overseas. So we don't have much, if any, support for our research activities from our own government, which limits our ability to advance our research. So all that you see, the work that we have tried to do, the seroprevalence testing, the sequencing, is all funded. It's all money that we have repurposed from grants we had got to do other things. I hope that this event will highlight the need for sustained investment, government investment in research in this country.
But with a vicious virus like COVID-19 spreading quickly, health authorities are thinking, what could be the alternative to the vaccines we have in their current state?
And I was asking, what's the alternative? The sure way of assuring that people are immune is either natural, but in that case you are prepared to have more people dying, or artificial. Artificial is a vaccination.
In Ghana, people who take COVID-19 vaccines are issued cards as a proof of vaccination. For many vaccine skeptics, this is the cue of the mark of the beast. They predict that soon, people will be forced to show their COVID-19 vaccination cards before they can access public services or even travel.
By November, COVID-19 and COVID-21 vaccines become mandatory. This is their plan. By December, COVID passports change name to health passports and become accepted as the normal way of life. Libaraseko Manta Baragadios.
Excerpts of our latest hotline documentary, Conspiracies, Jabs and Myths, produced by my colleague, Manuel Cranting. Manuel himself has joined us via Zoom. Manuel, congratulations on the great work, first of all, but it's a very controversial subject you chose. Why?
Indeed, Daniel, thank you very much. And to the question that you asked, just ahead of the arrival of the vaccines in Ghana, the country was really battling with the virus. And at the onset of the year 2021, our death toll was just on the rise. Quite, ironically, before the vaccines arrived in the country, certain conspiracies had gone ahead of them. And then they were flying on social media, essentially getting people to ready themselves not to take the vaccines against all the efforts that were being put in by government and other partners who are providing the vaccines for us. And so, it's a threat to me, it's a threat to you, that if we come out to take the jabs and other people refuse to take the jabs, it essentially nullifies the entire work, which means that we are not able to reach herd immunity. And if we are not able to reach herd immunity, the entire work that has been put into the vaccination program would have gone to naught. And so we thought that it would be a good subject to explore, give people something to hold on to, and essentially, enlighten people about the safety and then also the efficacy of the jabs and what they meant for us as a country, Daniel.
Right. So tell us what it's been like putting this together.
Well, it's been days of late night closing and so on. But of course, it all comes with the work. But particularly going down into the community and meeting the people who are supposed to be the target, the recipient of the vaccines, and you speak to them and they essentially tell you that there's this. Yeah, and then you would see it quite later in the documentary. There's this group of boys I spoke to who told me playing somewhere in Chopper. They said, well, the sea is our vaccine. And for us, if we get into the sea and bathe in there, we think that we are way better off than going to sit down and get somebody to inject us. And so all of these culminate into the sort of misconception around the vaccines and the reason for which we're doing this, to get people to understand that it's moved from just a normality, or if like a frivolity as people call it, to a responsibility. So that you owe it to your wife, you owe it to your brother, you owe it to your husband to take the jab, to be safe, so that you can also protect them.
That's very interesting when you mentioned that there are some people saying the C is their vaccine. What are some of the other interesting things you discovered?
and Daniel, there are levels to these whole conspiracies and myths. There's the religious angle. There's a business angle to it, where people feel that some tech giants who are in for business decided to just put this whole thing out, and that because of the stay-at-home orders, the lockdown, and so on and so forth, there was a mass migration from in-person, face-to-face interactions to online, and the ultimate beneficiary of this particular move were the tech giants, the telecommunications companies, and so on and so forth. So people actually believe that the entire COVID-19 pandemic was a ruse to get these tech giants to rake in a lot more money. And that for them is their belief. And they hold that religiously. But the other people also, quote certain verses in the Bible. For instance, Revelations 13 is quoted with reference to the apocalyptic mark of the beast. And they say that taking the jabs and getting, and that in Ghana, when you take the jab, you are issued a certificate or something, a semblance of a card. For them, that card is a symbol of the mark of the beast, and they're not going to subject themselves to taking the jabs. But we try to, bring some bit of light into the space and educate people on why you need to actually even get a certificate that you have been vaccinated. Right?
So, Mano, these are very interesting conspiracies and myths about the jabs. How widespread would you say they are from what you've discovered? And what are the efforts that you have found are being put in place to combat them?
Well, Daniel, the first, you know that our vaccination program is being rolled out in a staggered approach. And so this staggered approach, first of all, focuses on the most at-risk people, so the health officials, frontline security personnel, etc., etc. These people fall in the bracket of what you call middle income, earners and so on. These people are fairly educated, and so the stats are there to show that in a matter of about a month since we started our vaccination program, a little over 500,000 people have received the jabs. But these people primarily fall within the bracket that I've referred to, the middle income folks who are fairly educated. But in the communities that I entered, where you don't have so many people educated, there's a stark, contrast between what we have learned about the vaccines and what they know about the vaccines. With the gentleman that I referred to, who said they would rather bathe in a sea than take the vaccine. But that's a sort of a microcosm of what the generality of the people in these areas believe. And we're seeing efforts from the National Commission on Civic Education, NCC. We've seen them move around with vans and so on to try and disseminate the information. But there's really so much more to be done, given the fact that we are now moving away from the first phase, which focus on the frontline health officials and security personnel, media practitioners, and so on. We're now moving into the general population, and this is and this will be the most challenging, if you ask me, because these are the people who hold quite dear to them these conspiracies that we are trying to bust with this project, Daniel.
Finally, Manuel, what are we to expect tonight?
So, Daniel, tonight we're trying to put these conspiracies to test. We are passing them through the scientific tests and see whether or not they stand the test and how rigorous they are, and indeed whether or not people are supposed to hold on to them vis-a-vis the impact of listening to these conspiracies. If you listen to a sermon, for instance, or an admonishment that says that don't go and take the jab, what is the opportunity cost of not taking the jab? So people get headache, people get fever. And when you put the headache or the fever against the potential loss of life if you contract the virus, which would you rather have? Would you rather die to COVID-19, lose your life to COVID-19, or you would bear the brunt of headache or fever for a couple of hours and then you are away from the vaccine? So there's a project that I'm excited about, Daniel. It airs at 8:30 p.m. tonight on the JoyNews channel. It's repeated tomorrow at 6:30. It aired earlier on the Super Morning Show. We'll continue the conversation tomorrow. And so I think that, for as many of us who are interested, in fact, all of us should be interested, because like I'm saying, it's moved from a personal thing to a national responsibility, which
Definitely.
all of us must get into, Daniel.
Congratulations once again, Manuel, on the good work done. I will be by my screen tonight at 8:30 to watch it. Conspiracies, jabs, and myths. Still to come in the bulletin, we will take you to Atakra number 2, community in the Ashanti region, where farming on Fridays is taboo.
When you go to the farm on Fridays, your crops will fail.